Robert Mueller's investigation into Russia and various other related and unrelated topics feels like it's been going on for about a generation now, maybe multiple generations. But at some point, it will end. All things end. Obviously, we don't know what Mueller's findings will be. We do know there are an awful lot of people, from the Democratic Congress to the entire news media, who will use the Russia report, whatever it says, to try to force the president from office. That's inevitable. Donald Trump has an awful lot of enemies. He also has a lot of supporters. 63 million Americans voted for this president. Pretty soon, he will need every one of those people to stand up for him, and not just him personally, but for democracy itself, the principle that we choose and remove our leaders by voting, not through bureaucratic coups. That moment is coming. Will the president get the support he needs to stay in office? Well, so far, Trump's voters have been remarkably loyal to him. But loyalty is a two-way street. It must be requited. You stick by the people who stick by you. Has the president stuck by his supporters? Well, in some ways, he has. But if you voted for Trump, take a step back. How's your life 2 years later? Are you freer now to say what you think than you were on Election Day 2016? Are you bolder and more confident in your beliefs? Or are you more afraid? It's a question James Damore might ask. The company that Damore once worked for, Google, often boasts about its commitment to the free exchange of ideas. So Damore dared to exchange his ideas with others. He never threatened or demeaned anyone. Google just didn't like what he said. So they fired him, and they trashed his reputation so thoroughly he couldn't find a job. Something very like that happened to the tech entrepreneur Palmer Luckey. Luckey was thrown off the board of Facebook solely because he supported Donald Trump for president. And then how about Alex Jones? You may not like Jones, you may despise him, but you should know that he was systematically crushed by the big tech companies just for saying things they disliked. He can't even use PayPal anymore. And he's not the only one, hardly. Others have been punished not for what they say, but simply for refusing to read from pre-approved scripts. Virginia public school teacher Peter Vlaming lost his job because he resisted using pronouns he believed to be inaccurate. Vlaming didn't criticize or misgender anyone. He simply avoided using pronouns entirely and addressed a student by name instead. That wasn't good enough. Vlaming was fired for the crime of having an opinion that most of the country shares. Those things happen, and they're just a few of the best-known examples. Imagine all those that don't make the news. How many Americans have been fired or denied work because of their political beliefs over the last 2 years? Who's protecting these people? In the business world, virtually every major company seems to have lurched left since Trump's election. Our corporate leaders are now openly determined to award this country's spoils on the basis of skin color rather than merit. They say that out loud. This is unfair, and it's deeply divisive. It makes Americans hate each other. It's also, as a factual matter, illegal. Corporations are not allowed to practice racial discrimination. Neither are universities. There's an entire division of the Justice Department that exists to enforce our laws against racism. Have they noticed what's happening? Of course they have. They just don't care. Maybe they should find other jobs. There are still lawyers in this country who care about civil rights, and the administration should hire them and set them to work. And while they're at it, they ought to defend our constitutionally guaranteed religious freedoms as well. Traditional Christian beliefs are not a crime. Discriminating against them is. Corporate America ought to be reminded of that. Beliefs that were considered conventionally conservative just 5 years ago are now routinely described as terrorism. Meanwhile, actual terror committed by the left seems to go unpunished. In 2017, to name just one example, a left-wing college professor called Eric Clanton smashed strangers in the head with a bike lock. Why? Because he believed they disagreed with his politics. Clanton was charged with a felony, but then the charges were dropped. He spent no time in jail. How did that happen? That same year, a left-wing mob in North Carolina destroyed a public statue they didn't like, purely because they felt like it. The whole thing was caught on video. Somehow, nobody was punished. At Evergreen College in Washington State, a left-wing mob ordered Professor Brett Weinstein to leave campus for having the wrong skin color. When he refused, the mob rioted. Weinstein was forced to hold classes in a public park. Police told him he wasn't safe on campus. Eventually, Weinstein resigned from his job. He felt he had no choice. The people who threatened Weinstein were never punished. In other words, they won. Violence won. This is all happening right now. Imagine how Barack Obama would have responded if it had happened to his voters while he was president. Let's say it's 2010. Obamacare has just passed, and public sentiment against the administration is intense. People are angry. Suddenly, it has become, in effect, a crime to support Barack Obama in public. You can be fired for admitting you voted for him. You can be punched in the face for wearing a hat with Obama's name on it. You think Obama would have done something about that? Hell yes. These are his voters. He's the president of the United States. His job is to protect them and all Americans who want to speak freely. You would never get away with threatening an Obama voter for supporting Obama. There is no chance, not for a second. The FBI would be in your living room before you got home. And good for the FBI. If our government exists to do anything, it's to preserve the free society that is our birthright. That society is crumbling. This country is becoming less free. The administration should fight back against that. They have the power. Laws on the books already protect an individual's right to support any political candidate he chooses. Enforce those laws. Should Americans need the approval of some tech billionaire in order to exercise their freedom of speech online? We won't know for sure until the administration pushes back against digital censorship. Facebook and Google and Twitter likely would respond with legal challenges. Let them. Fighting for speech is always the right fight. It's also good politics. The president is up for re-election in 2 years, and he'll be judged on what he has accomplished in office. Will he get a border wall or an infrastructure plan? Who knows? The Congress doesn't seem anxious to cooperate on anything. One thing the president can do is exercise his executive powers to defend the Bill of Rights and the dignity of all Americans, no matter what they think. Let's say the wall is never built. On the other hand, in November of 2020, the president can sincerely say to the country that he has fought as hard as he could to make certain that everyone in America is treated equally under the law, regardless of sex or skin color or political beliefs. No, he'll say, you didn't get new roads or airports. You didn't live to see Planned Parenthood defunded. Congress blocked all that. But the good news is you're no longer afraid. You don't have to whisper anymore when you say what you really think. You don't live in fear that some corporate sensitivity officer will destroy your career for thinking the wrong thing. You can say what you really believe in public. You're an American citizen. That is your right. If Donald Trump can credibly say all that 2 years from now, it's still possible he won't win, but he'll be a genuinely great president.